So I want to touch back on that bearer asset thing because that is that is wow, is that the hot topic. So this notion of like what does it look like when you got bearer assets? RWAs are very tricky because the underlying asset is it's a physical thing, right? It's a piece of real estate canonically. And the bearer assets are not the thing itself. Like Bitcoin, it's a bearer asset where the bearer asset is the thing itself. In the blockchain world, you get these things which are bearer assets, which are rights to another thing. And the thing that trips us on this time and time and time and time again is that the other thing to which that bearer asset is a right is controlled by a government, right? Government has a land register, or that land register, there's a piece of real estate. Blockchain token gives you a right to the piece of real estate, but you're still basically owning the right to tell the government what to do with its land register, right? And that relationship between bearer instruments and the external world, let me just put in a word here for insurance, right? The crux of the Mattereum system is that you have these bearer instruments. Okay, great, you got your bearer instrument. If the bearer instrument comes unstuck from the underlying physical asset, you have insurance. And the thing about insurance is that insurance can be an on-chain asset. So if you've got something like a tokenized risk pool, all those tokens are on chain, that's where the value is. Something comes unglued in the real world, you go back onto the blockchain and say, right, I'd like to make a claim here because this thing came unglued. You get into a position where you can create a simulation of perfect bearer assets using insurance to cover the breaches. And at that point, you begin to get something that looks like a blockchain jurisdiction. Right? You can maintain the illusion that we actually have control by adding insurance for the places where something slips out and we get a breakage. And that as a paradigm, I think accomplishes nearly all the goals that people have for the network states, but it does not require negotiation with government power because blockchain-based insurance, generally speaking, is outside the reach of the nation states. Right? I mean, you might wind up with a company in the Cayman Islands that in some way is carrying some part of that load, but for the most part, this idea that you can create the illusion of perfect bearer assets as long as you've got sufficient insurance strapped to them, I think that is actually an extremely critical insight in terms of how do we create, kind of freedom-loving systems in a world which is very, very, very tied down. And if anybody, again, is interested in that stuff, the technical terminology that we use for that is synthetic jurisdiction. You've got synthetic assets. Okay, great. A synthetic asset is an asset tied to a bunch of insurance and a, contract for difference or whatever it happens to be. You can extend that logic to create synthetic jurisdiction also.